You know, I'm getting sick and tired of millennials getting slammed as being lazy. And although I'm not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, I'll tell you this, the one thing the world's not prepared for is that millennials are actually getting it right. And here's why. All right, now here's what's actually keeping millennials trapped, right? Because if millennials who are starting to figure out something different, they're getting trapped by the traditional financial advice. And that's the thing, it's like, even if you get the new players, right? The people on social media telling you, here's what you actually do, right? You get the Caleb Hammers of the world, right? And you get all these different people out there telling you this is what it's like. But the truth is, they're really just the same people as like the Dave Ramseys, who's our boomers that we hate, right? But that's the problem, is that the same information is getting passed down. And the same rules, really even the old rules didn't work back then, how do you expect they're going to work today? And they won't. And this is why millennials are starting to question everything. So for example, you've been taught you got to stick your money into a company 401k. This is the path, this is the way, as the Mandalorian says, right? Well, is it the way? Because if you keep putting that money in the 401k, which up to this point, companies like Fidelity, who have 45 million account holders in the United States, 45 million, yet only about 2% have $1 million or more despite decades and decades of savings. Think about this, $1 million, and then you're only supposed to live on 3% a year. I know there's the 4% rule that got debunked years ago, yet it's coming back on social media. It's crap, right? It's 3% if you're trying to retire in your 60s, 4% if you wait till your 70s, 2% if you're trying to do it early. So if you're trying to become financially independent, retire early, you can only pull out 2% of that. Well, let's just say you have $1 million you actually happen to save up. You're one of the 2% that did it. Guess what? You can only live on $20,000 a year if you're trying to retire early. If you try to retire at normal age, $30,000 a year. That's nothing to live on unless you're going to stay single forever, right? You're just trying to stay cheap and broke for the rest of your life. That hasn't worked. The 401k has not worked despite the match. And by the way, the matches were better before our time. And now they're getting worse. Companies are getting a little stingier on the match than they used to be. It's getting worse, yet we still keep playing by these same old rules that even decades prior did not work. And I know because I watched it firsthand. I watched what happened with my dad, who is the very forefront of the baby boomers. And yet, despite him saving and doing all he could, and despite the roaring 90s and everything else, I had to tell him, like, Dad, even though you're in your 60s, you got like 5 or 6 years left to live with the money you have in there. And he had to work into his 70s before he finally was able to retire on a limited budget still. And this guy was a super duper penny pinching saver. This guy did not give a crap about the lattes and things like that. This guy was trying to penny pinch his whole life to only find out it wasn't enough. And guess what? We've been taught these same stupid rules all the way to our younger generations now, telling us that the 401k is the answer. It is not the answer. And despite the free money, the problem is that those target date funds that Fidelity has underperforms the stock market so much that the match just makes up for their bad performance to finally make what you would have made in the stock market by yourself anyways. You think I'm a little bit passionate about this? I am, right? Because it's just bullcrap. All right, here's the other thing, is that many people are lacking the courage to start their own business and take control of their own destiny. Now, granted, there are a lot of millennials doing this. They're doing a great job actually getting out there and trying to do things on their own, even working virtually and then eventually working on a contractor basis or even just starting their own thing. And right now, I will tell you, the reason you should not be afraid, because I know many are taught that you're still supposed to get those good grades so you can get the good degree and get the good job and everything should be fine. But the truth is that if your parents and grandparents didn't get anywhere with that too, why would you? And it's harder now in the corporate world than it's ever been. It's more competitive. We got things like AI that's literally starting to change the work environment to where you have to maneuver and become more and more valuable. Now, that's not a bad thing. You can use that to your advantage, because I'll tell you, it's never been easier to start a business. Personally, I started a business in my 20s back in the early 2000s. This was almost 25 years ago. I was brand new, didn't know what I was doing, and I was horrible at it, okay? For a few years, I was still working my full-time job while working as a financial advisor on the side. Now, it wasn't that I didn't know what I was doing as a financial advisor, but it was so hard because back in those days, internet was just barely a thing. And what you're doing, you're literally picking up the phone, calling people, right? You're calling people, I call it smile and dial. You're calling people up, trying to get them in to have an appointment with you, to invest with you. You know, it just wasn't as easy. Marketing wasn't as easy, right? I mean, it was like we were doing mailers. You might do a little dinner, a steak dinner that you try to do, and you have to put a lot of money into it, hoping that you get some clients from it. You know, you're building your business off referrals. It was very, very slow and hard to do. Today, with the freaking, not just the internet, but with everything with social media, which we didn't have back then, and everything else is going on, It's so much easier. With AI, everything's easier. What would take me literally years to figure out in marketing, I could figure out in minutes because of the technology today. It's never been easier. And as a result, that's why you have to stand out more when you do this. So starting a business right now, it's the best thing that could happen, and it's one of the best ways you can actually take control of your own future and your destiny to create real financial freedom in your life right now. Now, here's the other thing. Let's be honest. If you're on social media at all, it's really hard when you start to see all these different lifestyle influencers and everything else showing you how all the amazing things they're doing and the trips they're taking and how it's incredible and how they're eating out all the time and doing this and doing that. This right here has been hurting a lot of millennials because it's easy come, easy go. Now, there's still good millennial savers too, but even being a saver, like I said before, saving your 401ks isn't the answer either. And so you got people either spending all their cash and then they don't have anything to really fall on, and then they wonder why it's so hard to live. And yes, it is hard to live. House prices are more expensive. Having to get a mortgage is more expensive. Even rent is more expensive. It is harder for you to launch and actually do something. And so here's what I would do instead. And this is what millennials are figuring out, and they're starting to do it better than the previous generations. So here's what they're doing. They're starting to focus on how do I create more cash flow, more passive income now. Now, here's the problem. You got everybody out there talking about Bitcoin and digital currency, and that can be good, but at the same time, it's a big gamble. And many gamblers get hosed at some point. And I'll tell you, from my own experience, like there's always been big things. There's always been hot stocks and hot investments and things that you can do, even in a real estate game. I remember in 2006, there was hot things you could do that can make 30% plus a year, and then bam. And so what we got to do instead is focus on how can we have things that are actually real assets paying us real income. That's the big focus. That's the big turning point that's happening right now. And luckily, because of social media, it's getting out there. But sadly, if you look at most things online, more companies are trying to teach you to still do that set and forget it, buy S&P 500, invest in Wall Street, because that's where all these financial advisors and experts make all their money telling you to go Wall Street. But like I said, Wall Street hasn't worked, and it's so overvalued right now, so hot, so high, that's about ready to come crashing down. And you're about to see the first time in your entire adult life, you actually get to finally see a down market, a correction, because that's exactly what's coming up, and it's been delayed. In fact, you have had the best advantage. This is the one thing millennials have had. If you've actually been investing in the stock market the last 15 years or so, you've actually made more money than any previous generations before you. Because this run that we've seen, where it's gone straight up for almost 16 years, other than one down year, it's gone straight up. That has never happened in history like this. And now we're at a point where it's got to get back into balance. This might be the perfect time to cash in your chips and be able to use that money to get it out to create passive income right now. And that's where you can actually do things like buying real assets, like real estate. And yes, you might think that real estate's expensive, but I'll tell you, the rental game is still strong because real estate is expensive. And it's not even about rentals. Did you know you can actually lend your money to real estate investors? Let them do it when they're going to renovate a property and flip it for a much higher price. You can share in those profits and or get paid double-digit returns on your money by lending the money, becoming the bank for them. Did you know you can actually go and invest in franchises, in things that you actually might believe in? You can invest in things such as oil and gas, which you may or may not believe in. But guess what? You can make money over there. There's so many different ways to make money that your financial advisor or the whole media, when it comes to teaching you about Wall Street, essentially, there's so many more better options than that. And these options pay you cash today, which gives you freedom right now versus waiting decades to see if it actually worked for you. Now, if you want to figure out what's that actual proven blueprint that we've made work over and over again for many, many years, that's got people to be work optional or have enough passive income to be able to work because they want to, not because they have to in just 5 or 10 years, go to moneyripples.com/consulting today.